Prophet Muhammad have Ramadhan Saum. How about for Prophet Yusuf? But Prophet Yaqub and the Prophet Yusuf, all are prophets. How about their lead? How about the administrative for all are prophets, but how can he provide about Allah for their people?
First of all, thank you for your presence and for your enthusiasm or curiosity about knowing more. As for the fasting of Yusuf alayhi salam and Prophet Yaqub alayhi salam, and how many prayers they had, what kind of prayer they had, well, actually I haven't found yet any authentic narration that clarify the way that they prayed at that time. What we are sure of is that they prayed. Now, how was the way that they prayed or the style that they prayed? Well, we don't know that. We all know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi with a special kind of prayer that is better than any prayer prayed before at the time of those prophets, peace be upon them all. As for fasting, we know for sure that fasting was mandated in the nations before. كُتِبَ عَلَيْكُمُ الصِّيَامُ كَمَا كُتِبَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ. The fasting was mandated on you Muslims like it was mandated on people from previous nations. But how did they fast? We don't know. You know? As for the second question, Yaqub alayhi salam had a responsibility as a prophet in the Holy Land, Palestine, to spread the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the job of Yusuf alayhi salam was even greater than that. Yusuf alayhi salam was in a situation where he was the governor of course he's now an imam. You know, he was promoted from the level of prophecy, which is leading sending the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or saying the message of Allah, calling people to join the message of Allah, like Yaqub alayhi salam was in his people, or the leader of his people, to the imam of whole Egypt, and maybe a lot of countries that surrounds Egypt. So Yusuf alayhi salam responsibility was on a wider place, the place that governed Egypt and all around Egypt, and he imposed the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on a wider level than Yaqub alayhi salam. Yaqub alayhi salam had the responsibility of, as a nabi, as a prophet, to just call people for the message of Allah, to ask the people to join the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to be the leader of his people. While Yusuf alayhi salam was the leader of thousands and thousands of people, especially when they returned to ask for the grains. That was a very important opportunity for Yusuf alayhi salam to use this chance to call for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to say to them that if it was not for the blessings and the miracle that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent to me to interpret the dream of the Aziz, we would have all died in those 7 years. So be grateful to Allah, be thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for His grace, that He maintained those grains to you. And He taught me how to maintain them by keeping them in their spikes and saving them. See how great is that? Yeah.
Sasa ni katika muktadha au katika hali ipi ambayo kisasi inakuwa ni haki ukilinganisha na hotuba aliyoitoa mida hii. Anasema kisasi ni haki. Sasa ni katika muda gani kisasi inakuwa huwezi kufanya kisasi, au katika muda gani kisasi inakuwa ni haki?
So he didn't have from the first place, from the first time, any hard feelings. Yet he was very annoyed that they accused him that he stole before, like Binyamin did. Of course, he was very annoyed. Okay, and he talked with himself. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that in his verse, that you're in a false position, putting yourself in a false position, dear brothers. But Yusuf alayhi salam didn't take his revenge when he was asking them to bring Binyamin or to bring their father. He was trying to teach them a lesson from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of course, through the revelation of Allah, that Yusuf alayhi salam should be patient, should not show your anger. Why? They should learn, they should feel your calamity, your tribulation, what you have went through. They should, how will they feel that more? When they are embarrassed on their, again, in front of their father. And I will also test Yaqub for that, again. Okay? And when you feel that you have no power. Yusuf, when you see that your brothers now don't have any supplies, any merchandise, any value that they could trade with to gain those grains, this is the time when you show your mercy, not your anger, not your revenge. That's why when they returned to Yaqub alayhi salam, when they returned to Yaqub alayhi salam, and they told him that Binyamin is still with the king, Yaqub alayhi salam told them, go and tahassasu Yusuf, just try to find any trace for Yusuf, for Binyamin, just do anything. You don't have anything to lose anymore, you don't have anything. So they went to Yusuf alayhi salam, and we'll explain more inshallah tomorrow. They were calling Yusuf in a very emotional way, that our father is very old and don't have anything to trade with, and we know that you are generous and you are just. It was known all over the kingdom. You are giving all those countries beside you grains, not like now. Every country is preserving and storing their grains for their political goals and objectives. The ego here plays a role. While Yusuf alayhi salam showed history, showed to all those political leaders nowadays, to all those leaders, to all those countries, to all those people, that you should care about other people. It's not just your business. Your business is to be human, to feel for others. Yusuf alayhi salam felt for others, but he taught his brothers a lesson, that everything what goes around comes around, and with Allah comes triple. See how many times he brought his brothers to Palestine and brought them again and counseled them. It's not easy. You know, it's not like an airplane, hey, for 4 hours through Ethiopian Airlines and you will be in Addis Ababa in Egypt. From Egypt to Palestine you pass through a desert, Sinai, and with bandits all over the place, that they could overtake your merchandise and commodities, and maybe you will die because you lost food, because the wolf ate, for example, in one of the nights, or it's not an easy job to go forth and come.
On my side, my question was the difference between mistake and the sin. When we say this one, mistake and the sin.
Mistake and the sin.
Yes, first question. And the second one, it is on how in Yusuf's story, there is sin stated that Yusuf taken to jail in our story.
Yeah, Yusuf was taken to jail.
Yes, Sasa. On how he was a prophet, and we believe that the prophet doesn't commit any mistake or sin. That is where my question is intermediate. And it means that when there is difference between mistake and sin, I can understand on how God does allow Yusuf to commit mistake or to commit sin at the moment. That is my question.
Yusuf alayhi salam didn't stay in jail because he forgot to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to save him from jail. Like it's mentioned in one of the series, one of the TV series. Okay? With all respect to the efforts of those brothers who made a huge effort, of course. May Allah compensate them to mention the story of Yusuf. Yusuf didn't stay, according to most of interpreters of the Quran, like Allama Tabatabai and others. They say that Yusuf alayhi salam stayed because the devil made the prisoner, the companion of Yusuf, forget to mention Yusuf alayhi salam in front of the Pharaoh. That's why Yusuf stayed in the jail. It's not because Yusuf forgot to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to save him. That's why he was left in the prison. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would say to him, why didn't you ask me? Immediately you ask a slave of Allah. Actually, this is an evidence of intercession, by the way. Intercession. Yusuf, even if he's a prophet, he took by the means of life. You know, the means, the tools of life. The tools of life is to ask a person who has a way to the Pharaoh, which is the prisoner. That's very normal. Even Yusuf took by the means of life. Yes, when the means of life are blocked, here comes the prayer. Here comes asking Allah directly. But first you ask Allah directly and you take by the means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opened for you. And Yusuf did that. He didn't do anything wrong. As for so Yusuf didn't commit any sin. Not even a mistake also. And yes, there is a difference between a sin and a mistake. A sin when you commit something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prohibits you from committing, like drinking wine and so on. While a mistake, for example, I could say to you, it's not haram to drink from this water. But if you drank from this water, you will be slower. We call it in Arabic hukum irshadi. It's not a mandatory rule. It's something that is best to do, better to do. Okay? It's like when Yunus alayhi salam, إِذْ ذَهَبَ مُغَاضِبًا فَظَنَّ. He was angry on his people. He was supposed to be more patient and wait for Allah's punishment or decision. Not to immediately prey on his people and go to the ship. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put them in a whale, in the belly of a whale. Okay? So he didn't commit a sin because in our belief, especially as a Shia school of thought, we don't believe that prophets commit a sin. Because they are role models. Role models don't commit a sin. But they what? They didn't take the better choice. This is called tark al-awla. Okay? Yusuf alayhi salam didn't even leave tark al-awla. Didn't even commit a mistake. On the contrary, he took by the means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opened for him.
Dream played a great role to the story of Yusuf alayhi salam. We even dream. And so I wanted to know the criteria that we have to look or we have to take to know the dream to consider and the dreams not to consider. Okay, so what are the criteria that we have to look to? This dream you have to consider this dream, or we don't have to consider it? Because sometimes it happens. You dream that your dad passed away, so you start thinking like, is this going to happen? Really happen? Or so what dream that we have to and what are the criteria that we have to look at?
Good question. Well, the only way to know if your dream was true or not is to bring Yusuf again to life. You got me? I've answered your question. The only way to know if your dream was a true dream, not a mix of dreams and false dreams, is to bring Yusuf alayhi salam alive. Because he's the only person who knows if this dream was true. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed him. That was his miracle. Allah وَعَلَّمَكَ وَكَذَلِكَ يَجْتَبِيكَ رَبُّكَ وَيُعَلِّمُكَ مِنْ تَأْوِيلِ الْأَحَادِيثِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed you exclusively, Yusuf, to interpret the true dreams. So you know a true dream is from a false dream. Well, what about the Prophet ﷺ? Of course, if he demanded that, he could know that if your dream was true or not. Why? Because to know the dream if it's true or not, you have to be very purified and connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, connected to the unseen, connected to the unseen world, to the mystic world. And the only people who are very connected to this world are the prophets and the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and his household. We have in our belief as Shia, we believe that our Imam has this blessing, has this grace. He can know. He can read beyond your physical status. Okay? Why? Because your deeds are offered to him. He sees your deeds. He has the eyes, the spiritual eyes. He looks beyond this world. Okay? Who has that? The only people who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala appointed them. Everyone who interprets your dream, even if he interpreted right, it doesn't mean that he's right. Be aware. كذب المنجمون ولو صدقوا. It's a very well known among all schools of Islam. No? Those who pretend that they know the unseen, they know about your dream, if it's real or not. Even if they were right in interpreting that, and you saw this eventually, that's true what they said, don't believe them. The only one you can believe is the person who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala appointed him as his messenger. That's the only way. And our belief, it's the 12th Imam, Imam al-Hujjah. He's alive among us. But unfortunately, we don't have this blessing of seeing him and being led by him. Because there's another, explanation for that. Why is that?